What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Georgia Sports Station. We got some more Hawks content on the way for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the All-Star break, kind of just what transpired over there in Indiana this past week, some of the All-Star trade rumors surrounding the Hawks, as well as the announcement today: AJ Griffin being sent down to the G League to get some work in. Obviously, he hasn't played in the main rotation. I think this is a good for him, but we're going to do a deep dive into that, see what the possible outcomes of that are, and tell you how his game went today. And third, we kind of discuss what the final third of the season can bring as far as just expectations for players, for the entire team, for the coaches, for the general manager, other stuff beyond that, and previewing the Raptors Hawks for Friday. Yes, Hawks basketball is back tomorrow. So without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with these trade rumors, and I'm doing the quote unquotes there because I was listening to a Brad Rowland's Locked On Hawks podcast. He had Tyler Jones on there, and Tyler made an excellent point where Trae Young, obviously, he's been in these trade rumors, obviously, linked to the Spurs, linked to the Lakers. Like, oh, could he leave? Could he leave? And while the Ringer and Kevin O'Connor, those guys have been so gung ho about wanting him to leave Atlanta, so many stars of Trae's caliber over the past few years have had this. And this is what Tyler said. You go through the list. Think about how many times Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's name was in trade conversations before the Thunder started winning this season and last season, if you can count as well. I mean, he was rumored to Toronto, obviously, being from Canada. Shai had that. Luka was even in it last season too. He was like, oh, the Mavericks have missed the playoffs, missed the play-in. If they can't do something, I don't know how long Luka can last there. Maybe they should trade him. That happened to him. And so Luka, you got Shai, and you got Damian Lillard too. And Brad brought this up on his. Damian Lillard for the longest time was putting up great stats. He had very similar career to Trae. He's been to the conference finals one time, but other than that, not really had much playoff success. So he finally says to the organization, okay, trade me after 10 seasons, 11 seasons, and he finally gets out of there. But the media was trying to push him out of Portland too when he was there. So I do want to calm Hawks fans down a little bit on that Trae Young trade stuff, because it happens to so many guys in Trae's position where they're the best player on a team that's not necessarily horrible, but that they're not winning and they're not having playoff success. So I don't think there's a lot of truth to these rumors. I don't think Trae is going to be moved this offseason. I think the earliest the organization might realistically explore moving Trae Young is after next season. If they have another year where ninth, 10 seed under around 500, then maybe they could explore it. Maybe. But I don't even think that's a possibility or likelihood, to be honest. But I do know one thing. Trae has vouched for Quinn Snyder. He's vouched to stay here in Atlanta, said he's happy here. His father said the same thing. So all the signs that are out there point to that he wants to stay here and wants to build a winning team here for a championship. So we'll see how that goes. But I didn't want to address that real quick before we get into all the news with what happened today, just because I thought it was kind of funny. Just Kevin O'Connor and the Ringer, their agenda with Trae it's been the same thing pretty much for now a couple of years. But over the All-Star break, we have Trae competing in the skills challenge, the 3-point contest, and obviously he was in the All-Star game, which he played the least amount on any squad, but he did have the most assists. So there you go. In the 3-point contest, he did very well. Placed second and lost on the final shot to Damian Lillard, who's now won back-to-back 3-point contest titles, winning last year's 3-point contest as well. So no shame in Trae losing there. But I thought he had a pretty good showing, especially last time. He made it to the finals in the 3-point contest, but then kind of had a stinker in the final round. Trae this time really stepped up his game and only lost on the final shot. So, yeah, I thought he did really well in that. In the skills challenge, placed second as well. Obviously, that half-court shot gave Tyrese Maxey, him, and Scotty Barnes a little bit of trouble. But it is what it is. And I think that Trae Young, I think he did a pretty good job at All-Star game, and I'm glad that he was able to go, even as an injury replacement, just because, like he said before, it's bigger than him. It's representing the organization, the city, the fans, his teammates. It's definitely good that he decided to go. But yeah, with that being said, we're gonna get to the news that was said today. Atlanta Hawks PR tweets out AJ Griffin has been transferred to the College Park Skyhawks. Now, we've seen this a few times that Hawks fans on Twitter really wanted AJ to go to the G League because, one, he's not really getting any minutes in the main rotation. Why would you want a first-round pick from last year who had a very, very promising rookie season? Why would you want him to just not play in the rotation? That's a perfectly good argument. And then second, with what he went through, the personal reasons that he was out for a larger part of a month or so, he's never even cracked the rotation or come close to it after that. Before that, he played a few spot minutes, but didn't look good in those. And I think the biggest reason they're sending him down to the G League right here is for his defensive development. Landry Fields said on his post-trade deadline press conference that AJ's defensive development is where they're going to focus on the most down there. Obviously, I think offensively he can do a little bit more as well. Quinn Snyder really likes to play a fast-paced offense, fast-paced decision-making. I think DeJounte has done a better job of that as the season goes on as well. Hunter, you've seen a noticeable change in him over the past, I'd say, few weeks. Just faster decision-making, getting to the rim more, shooting more threes, less focused on that mid-range. And AJ doesn't like to play very fast. Even his rookie season, when he was playing really well, he's more of a methodical. He's going to think things out, and he's just as a slower-paced guy. And that doesn't really mesh well from what Quinn has said he wants to do offensively. So I think both defensively, especially on ball, just moving his feet, get that lateral quickness up, and then on offense, just kind of making quicker decisions with the ball in his hands more. I think those are the main two things that you're going to see AJ really work on College Park in College Park this season, I guess, when he's down there. But I think one of the main reasons we saw today, he had 12 points in the first half on 5 of 7 shooting. Now, in the second half of the game today in College Park, he did go down. Unfortunately, he twisted his ankle, and he did come back to the bench. But I do not believe he got a lot of minutes after that, just because that ankle turn. And unfortunately, the injuries are hidden right now for the Hawks. We've got Clint Capella back, unfortunately, but Onyeka Okongwu, he had that toe issue. We don't really know how that injury happened, but he went down with that toe injury right before the All-Star break, the second game before the break. And now Quinn Snyder says today that he is out for the quote foreseeable future, and that's not a great sign. Now we don't know what foreseeable future means. It could be a foreseeable future for a few weeks, few days, few hours, because some of these coaches this season have been hilarious when they've said foreseeable future. For example, Steve Kerr, when they switched up the lineup and put Brandon Podziemski in the starting lineup, moved Andrew Wiggins and Klay Thompson to the bench. This was a few weeks ago. He said, okay, I'm going to stick with this lineup for the foreseeable future. The next day, he comes out with a whole different lineup. Now, obviously, Brandon Podziemski starting as shooting guard. You got Klay Thompson off the bench and Kuminga at power forward. But Darvin Ham has done that too, switched up the lineups right after he said, I can see us going with this for the foreseeable future. So we'll see what Quinn's foreseeable future definition is. But just not a great sign there for Okongwu, who was really playing well after Clint went down with that toe, with his adductor strain. And the biggest thing for me that this hurts Okongwu is he was really in line to be okay. Are they going to start Capella when they come back, or are they going to start Okongwu? I think, and Kevin Chouinard, writer for Hawks.com, host of the ATL 29 podcast, he mentioned on our Twitter space. By the way, if you're not following Ethos Hawks on Twitter, make sure to go follow there. We're going to be doing a giveaway at 500 followers, so make sure you go check out that account right there. But he mentioned that this was the first time in Okongwu's career where the Hawks could lean either direction. Could they start Capella? Could they start Okongwu? It'll be interesting to see what they do if Okongwu comes back, hopefully in the near future here. And obviously, Capella's going to be back. His minutes will be limited a little bit, so you're going to see a little bit more Bruno Fernando. You're probably going to see maybe some minutes at Jalen Johnson at center, even if, especially if the opposing lineup is just gone smaller. We saw that in the Clippers game before the break about a week before that, when the Clippers ended their game with Russell Westbrook at center, the Hawks just did not have the athleticism, did not have the defensive firepower to stop that lineup. Jalen Johnson at center is one of those guys that can adjust to that lineup and be a little bit more competitive than having a guy like Capella out there or Kongu. So hopefully that'll be the case, and we see Onyeka come back soon. But for Capella, I wonder how many minutes we will see of him. Obviously, after his minutes restriction is done, I expect to see 30 minutes a night. But I don't know if the Hawks want to do that. Depending on how long Okongwu's out, do you want Capella playing 30 minutes every night with his lower body injury? Lower body injury history. In recent stretches, he's been okay, but we've seen that Clint Capella is at his best when he plays, those high 20s, mid 20s a night, where he can gobble up those rebounds and even, have that occasional 15 points, 20-point games. But I don't know how they're going to limit Capella's minutes and keep him healthy and compete at the same time. It's really going to be interesting to see what Quinn Snyder does with the rotation, as well as what Landry Fields does to try to add depth, if he does, to the end of this roster. We know the Hawks have needed wing depth for a while. And one of the rumors that actually Patrick Beverley, when he announced his trade, he's become a source now. Patrick Beverley said that Danuel House was thinking about signing with the Hawks. And Danuel House, he can help the Hawks just out of wing depth. Wing depth has been the Hawks' most weakest part of their lineup. And it's kind of strange to think about it that way, because when we first saw this roster, we were like, wow, the wing depth is really good. AJ Griffin, DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, Saddiq Bey. Garrison Matthews can even step in there, but Garrison hasn't probably been around what they had hoped. And Hunter's been out for the majority of the season. Jalen missed a good chunk. Saddiq offensively hasn't been himself, but obviously Jalen's still been doing well, even though he missed that month with that wrist injury. But House, he's a good shooter, good defender. He can space the floor. One thing that does worry me a little bit is his rebounds. He's not that great of a rebounder, especially when he plays the power forward position. Ideally, he'd play at small forward. But really, there's a spot in the rotation for him right now. Assuming the Hawks don't play Kobe Buffkin, which I don't agree with. I think they should be playing Kobe Buffkin right now, especially with how many minutes and load Trey and DeJounte have. They're just doing everything for this team at the moment. So when you have DeAndre Hunter, Saddiq Bey, and Jalen Johnson. Now you have Garrison Matthews, who's been playing a few minutes, but really those three guys that I listed at first, Saddiq, Dre, JJ. Those are your three main wings. House could be that fourth guy that you could slot in a full bench unit right at that small forward position as that fourth wing. And Garrison, as much as his three-point shooting is valuable to the team, House is just a better player, especially on the defensive end. So if they can find a way to sign Danuel House and get some roster depth in here, especially for the playoffs, that is just huge, because the rotations will shorten up. And with the amount of guys that the Hawks have that are injury prone, you got Bogey with his lower body issues, DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella. Those three main guys, all three in the main rotation. They've got to find a way to kind of limit the load on those guys, limit their minute strain to kind of be fresh for the playoffs and the play-in, assuming that they make it there, which I do. I do think the Hawks will finish in the play-in. But I did want to go over a little bit of expectations from player by player. And I did this on the Sports Ethos Atlanta Hawks podcast last night with Tim Ogles. Make sure to check that out. But I want to go a little bit more in depth than we went with there, because I think that we could have discussed, and I wanted to discuss more of what Quinn Snyder and Landry Fields could do as well. And I'll start with Quinn Snyder. Obviously, I do think Quinn is a good coach. I think that he is a great coach, especially paired with Trae Young. the way that he likes to play matches with what Quinn wants to do. And obviously, the record doesn't reflect that right now. And I get why fans are upset. Quinn Snyder's been a trash coach. He's not better than Nate McMillan. Some people say that, and the record would indicate that. So I mean, I understand the frustration, but for me, I think the process right now is what Quinn is coaching for, and I think while he could definitely be doing more as far as just the win now portion of this roster. I think that is not debatable. He could be doing a better job trying to win games right now, but I don't think that's the priority. And we'll see what that looks like in the second half of the season. Whether he changes the rotation up, does Kobe Buffkin play more? Does Okongwu, when he comes back, hopefully soon, does he play more than Capella? Are we seeing more minutes of Okongwu and Jalen together versus Capella and Jalen? These are the things that fans are going to need to look out for to say, what is the direction of this team, and who are they focusing? What area are they prioritizing to at the end of the season? Is it more development? We heard Landry Fields say they're going to prioritize internal development, and he referenced Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey, the way he's played lately, Okongwu. Of course, now that injury kind of derails that, but those three guys he mentioned, their upticks in production had some of a say in why they didn't do anything at the deadline. If Sadiq especially and Jalen can continue their production that they had at the start of the All-Star break or the end of the end of the third of the season, then that's going to bode well for the Hawks. I don't think then that you'll see guys like say, okay, we're going to lean into more of the young guys. I don't think the Hawks will ever tank. I don't think that they'll say, okay, Trey and DeJounte, we're kind of going to limit you, Bogey as well. I don't think they'll ever do that. Seth Lundy, don't think he'll play. Mohamed Gabe, obviously, he hasn't played because of that back issue, but it's good to see him getting more work in. And it looks like he's going to play in the G League before the season's over. That's huge. Huge for him, huge for just his development, because obviously that back injury has just kept him from doing anything really this season, which is just unfortunate for him. But yeah, I think from Quinn Snyder, what I'd like to see, just kind of the direction we want to go. Right now, it seems like they're not trying to prioritize development. It seems like they're prioritized trying to win. Now, it hasn't really led to many of those, but if they're not gonna play Kobe Buffkin, if they're not going to lean into more of a Okongwu than Capella, then they're gonna try and win games. And if they're gonna try and win games, I expect them to. So hopefully that can happen. But if not, if they are going to more of that development route, then let's see it. Let's see Kobe Buffkin. Let's see Onyeka Okongwu more than Capella, and try to just find out what the direction of this franchise is. That's the biggest thing for me coming out of the All-Star break. What direction do the Atlanta Hawks want to go in? And I think for the first few games, you're going to see that. Unfortunately, with Okongwu's injury, it kind of muddies the water a little bit, murks the water a little bit, because of they can't play him, obviously. But we'll see what they do in terms of that. I want to get to some players here that I want to go more in depth to. I want to go to Garrison Matthews first, because he's had some spot minutes. When a wing goes down, he gets more minutes. And in those minutes, he's got to be able to stay on the court. And that's weird to say, because he'll only play maybe like 10 minutes. But in those 10 minutes, he can't keep getting in foul trouble. And that especially is important for DeAndre Hunter, because if the Hawks can manage his minutes and keep him at high 20s, 27, 28 minutes, and keep him fresh for the playoffs, that's perfect. But if Garrison Matthews continually gets in foul trouble when he's had those short stints, Hunter's going to need to play more. Bogey's going to need to play more. Sadiq's going to need to play more. All those guys have had a heavy minutes load, and you don't want them to tire out before these playoffs / playing. As we move on down to the line here, Bogey. Bogey's offense, I think, has definitely been good for most of the season. He did go through that slump in January when the Hawks offense dipped, as well as Sadiq Bey. But I want to focus defensively for Bogey, because I've always been of the mindset that Bogey is a physical defender. But for the last, I'd say, 2 weeks, I haven't seen that. I think Bogey needs to get back to being that physical defender. Obviously, he's not the quickest guy lateral quickness wise, but he's a physical defender. He's gonna make you. He's gonna make him. He's gonna make. Geez, he's going to make other defenders know that he's there. Other offensive players know that he's there, and I want to see more from that from Bogey. And I think that we will, especially with this All-Star break. It's going to benefit him, Trey, DeJounte, all the main guys with minutes, taking a load off of their lower bodies, because that's what most of the Hawks guys are injury prone with that. For Trey, I think I do want to see the turnovers a little bit less, because obviously with how much Trey has the ball, he's going to get a lot of turnovers. That's just something he's going to do. He takes risks, but also the risks that he takes, sometimes I do want him to dial that down a bit. I think that with the turnovers, him leading the league in turnovers, yeah, well, it's not a great stat. He has the ball in his hands so much that it's going to happen. He's going to get a lot of turnovers, but I think one of the turnovers that he can avoid are the ones about, pushing the ball up the hole a little bit too recklessly. I think that we saw some of those tired legs kind of show that in the final game against Charlotte there, against the Bulls as well. The Hawks offense just kind of slipped off as the game went on in the second half. So I think Trey just cutting down on those turnovers is going to be huge to keep the Hawks offense flowing normally. For DeJounte Murray, a consistent defensive effort. And while we've seen DeJounte have some great defensive moments, defending Austin Reeves against the Lakers. He had a great defensive performance against the Spurs. Against the Bucks, he's defending Damian Lillard really well. And we see it in the fourth quarter. DeJounte has been able to lock down some really, really good guys and kind of just cement the win for the Hawks. But it's really not there for 30-plus minutes. And I want to see if we can get that from DeJounte, because offensively, I think DeJounte just needs to keep doing what he's doing. I think the three-point shooting has been great. The ball movement and the offense that he's had without Trae Young, while it's been kind of shaky for the most part when Trey's off the floor, I think lately DeJounte's done a really good job of that. And then I want him to keep doing just getting to the free throw line. The past week before the All-Star break, DeJounte was doing an excellent job. While he's not the greatest finisher at the rim, he got to the rim and was drawing fouls. When he has those, 5 of 16 shooting nights, that free throw percentage, the free throw volume can really boost that stat line and help the Hawks win. You see Trey, he'll have, an 8 for 21 shooting night, 8 for 22 shooting night. Now, while that isn't good, he can offset that by hitting, maybe 4 threes and getting to the line 9 times and hitting 8 of them, or 10 times hitting 9 of them, something like that. So I think DeJounte is able to do that. If he's able to do it consistently, that's something that's going to really help the Hawks. For Saddiq Bey, what I've seen from Saddiq right before the All-Star break, the defense was much improved. Obviously, at the start of the season, I really don't think that he was used to kind of this show and playing up at the point of the screen as the 4 on defense. That really doesn't match with his strengths. His greatest strength is drop coverage, as well as Capella. But I think Saddiq has done a better job adjusting. He's worked really hard this season. He's always hustling. And what I want him to keep doing is getting to the rim. He's getting free throws. Obviously, the shooting has been a point of contention for the season. It hasn't been there for most of the season. And he's shooting 31% on 5.6 attempts versus 40% on 5 attempts last season. Those 9 percentage points, that's a huge jump, a huge dip. And if he can offset that by getting to the rim, using his strength in mismatches, which he's done this past few weeks before the All-Star break, I think that'll be huge for the Hawks. For Jalen Johnson, he just needs to be more aggressive. Right? Keep going to the rim, assert yourself more into the offense. And this is where that development portion comes in a little bit from Landry Fields. He said the Hawks will focus on internal development. Jalen is one of those guys they're building around with Trae Young. If that's the case, I wonder if Quinn Snyder features him a little bit more in the offense. Does Jalen take it upon himself to be more aggressive? Obviously, that doesn't bode well for DeJounte, who's a great player. But is he in the future long-term plans for this team? It doesn't seem that way, because most signs point to the Hawks really trying to find a way to trade him this summer at the draft when more teams have more draft assets to give up. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that for Jalen, just the biggest thing is being more aggressive, kind of knowing how big he is, how athletic he is, and the way he can insert himself on the court, kind of becoming that, okay, I know I'm this good, instead of I need to prove to myself a couple games that I can do this, and then I'll see. But no, that mindset has got to be there for every single game. So we'll see how that goes. And then I did have an expectation for Kobe Buffkin, because if he gets playing time, it's a big if. If he gets playing time, I want to see the same thing that we saw in that Rockets game from Kobe Buffkin. The defense on Jalen Green was great. He was the only guy who was able to stay in front of him on the perimeter. Offensively, he was more of just stand in the corner, catch and shoot three guy. Obviously, with Trey and DeJounte on the court, that's what he's going to do. And that's why I think he hasn't played a lot up here and more in College Park, just because his success in College Park, that's obviously well known. But he wouldn't be able to make the reads that he's made in College Park with the ball in his hands in the pick and roll that he could do on the Hawks, because there's just Trey and DeJounte and Jalen, Sadiq, way other guys higher in the pecking order. But the fact that Kobe has gone from last summer league, got it kind of shaky on turning the ball over a lot, just making those reads on the pick and roll. The fact that he's made that adjustment from the summer league to the G League, where he's been great at it, I wonder when we can see it, if we get to see the chance of Kobe making these reads at the NBA level, kind of getting involved in ball screens with the ball in his hands, seeing what he can do. I wonder if we see that at some point this season, especially at the backup point guard spot, because you want to kind of give some rest to Trey and DeJounte, especially down the stretch. If they're going to make it in the play-in or the playoffs, you don't want them playing 35, 36 minutes every single night. And I think Kobe can be a huge boost if the Hawks decide to do that. Now, we're going to preview the Hawks-Raptors game for this Friday. One thing the Raptors have come out and said, head coach Darko Rajakovic came out and said, we're going to prioritize Grady Dick here. We're going to see how he can try to assert himself in closing lineups, kind of see what his development is like. So you've seen Dick be starting at some points. You've also seen him in the closing lineups. And if this game is close, the Raptors are a very young team. Obviously, Scotty Barnes is leading the charge over there. But I don't think the Hawks will come out and say, all right, yeah, we're going to give Kobe Buffkin these minutes, Seth Lundy. We're going to give these guys these minutes and really see what he can do. I don't think they're going to come out straight and say that. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Hawks really do with that. But I just don't see them. I don't see them. I don't see them going all out development. Now for this game, the Raptors have kind of given Trey fits in the past, but this year it's been something different because they don't have Siakam, they don't have OG Anunoby. Dennis Schroeder always takes pride in matching up with Trey Young. They don't have him anymore. He's in Brooklyn now. So Trey has had some monster games against the Raptors this season. The length, I think, of the Raptors a little bit bothered Trey before, but now I expect Trey to have a huge game tonight. This was back when he started that 30-10 streak a few months ago up in Toronto. This is back-to-back games actually north of the border. That's when Trey started that streak. So I expect him to have a huge night, and I expect the Hawks. They really don't even need to speed the game up too much tonight or tomorrow night, because one thing the Raptors struggle to do is score the ball a lot in the half court. The Hawks don't. With Trey Young leading that offense, what DeJounte has been able to do over the past couple of weeks with his offensive game, the Hawks shouldn't have any trouble scoring on this Raptors defense. And if they can slow the game down a little bit, limit the number of possessions the Raptors can have, I think that'll bode well for them. Another key, Jakob Poeltl. Clint Capella's going to be on a minutes restriction. We don't know what that minutes restriction will be, but I assume Bruno Fernando will play some minutes. Jakob Poeltl's a great rebounder. He's also a good passer for a big man. So Bruno, we know he's kind of struggled guarding guys that'll stay on the perimeter. And Jakob, being the good passer that he is, he makes some passes from the perimeter. Let's see if Bruno and Capella can kind of neutralize Jakob Poeltl on the boards and make him a non-factor. Because if they do that, I don't think the Raptors have a shot at beating the Hawks. And lastly, I want to see Scotty Barnes, and I believe the Jalen Johnson matchup. I assume Jalen will be guarding Scotty for most of the night. Obviously, when DeAndre Hunter comes in, I think he takes that assignment. But let's see how Jalen can do guarding the best wing, the best player on the opposing team. And it's good that he's going to get these reps because while Jalen has a heck of a defensive ceiling, he's just not there yet in terms of consistently being able to kind of lock down the opposing team's best wing. And I think he's going to get there. But let's see if Jalen can make a little bit more progress to that. But before we get out of here, I do want to mention some Braves talk because spring training games have gone underway. Now, not necessarily for the Braves, but you had the Dodgers. The Dodgers started their spring training games today. They put up 8 runs in the first. Of course, that Dodgers offense kind of went crazy already. But the Braves are coming soon. March 28th, a month and 6 days away. We have Braves baseball back, opening the season in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park against the Phillies. That is gonna be another. This is back-to-back seasons, I believe, that Braves start the season up in Citizens Bank Park. Now historically they haven't had a good start up there when that happens. So let's see. Hopefully they can change that this season. We got a question from Frank here. Are these final stretch of games must-win games to the Hawks or a close record to the next? To me, must-win games are always relative. Like anybody's going to say, "Oh, this is a must-win game." Somebody's going to argue it's not. But the Nets got worse after the deadline. The Hawks stayed the same. I don't think the Nets or the Raptors would catch the Hawks in the play-in. If that's what you're asking me, I don't think the Hawks have to worry about those guys. They got worse, and I think the Hawks are going to try to get better. And we saw the Hawks kind of find something with that 4-game win streak, and then of course they had the 2 flops with the Bulls and the Hornets to end the All-Star to end the break, which was 2 brutal losses, honestly. But no, I don't think the Hawks have to worry about the Nets that much. But yeah, the Braves will start March 28th. This is going to be a fun season, guys, because there'll be fans out there who's going to say, "Oh man, I'm so jaded about the regular season. These past 2 years have been just such terrible seasons. Losing to the Phillies in that first round back-to-back times. Is it going to happen for a third time?" But this team is projected to be so good, and I know we said that last season, but really enjoy. I want Braves fans to still really enjoy the regular season because I guarantee the Braves are going to play a lot of good baseball this season. It's going to be fun to watch. So I hope fans don't become jaded just because there's no playoff success. Obviously, it's easy to. I don't blame them, but I think there's still going to be plenty to watch for this regular season, especially when you got Ronald Acuna coming off an MVP season. He only can get better. And then Ozzie Albies coming off a healthy season where he demonstrated what he can do. Matt Olson, Austin Riley. Hopefully Sean Murphy has a bounce back year like he did in the first half of last season. Jared Kelenic, seeing how he's going to perform. Michael Harris, what he did last year. Chris Sale, and then obviously the drama with Max Fried. This could be Max Fried's last season in Atlanta. Hopefully they get an extension done because, in my opinion, I think Max Fried is the most important guy out of the 3 guys that have left, that could leave. Obviously, Freddie left in free agency. Dansby left in free agency. I think Max Fried is the most important guy that the Hawks need to keep because, sure, yeah, Dansby was good, and he's a better player than Orlando Arcia. But Arcia had a great season last year. He kind of matched that production. Matt Olson, what a year he had last season, and he's been almost as good, even last year, better than Freddie. But nobody can replace Max Fried. I don't think Spencer Strider is there yet in terms of that number 1 guy. He's definitely going to be, probably 1 more year. But it never hurts to have a legitimate ace with a big playoff resume, big playoff success, and especially with that big curveball that Max has from the left side. I don't think there's a more important guy to extend or focus if you're Alex Anthopoulos on getting than Max Fried staying in Atlanta past this season. So hopefully we see that. and we see a successful Brave season. But with that, that is going to do it for this episode of Georgia Sports Nation. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And we'll see you guys Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week. Thanks for listening, and see you guys next time. Peace.